Hello, my fellow chatterers, and hopefully stat lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what's going on or you're lost. I'm Chatty, and welcome to my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, where, yes, I am going to be chatting away madly about all the September stats. So, first of all, what we do on here is I do my little shot gimmick, because on here I don't edit. I just keep rolling and occasionally pause, which sometimes can be chaotic, but cheers everyone. Fingers crossed for chaos limitation. So I'm going to go through looking at all the books that I've read over the month, thinking about, am I reading a range of genres? Have I got a balance between different authors? Let us have a look and see. But second, I need to decide, do I get a reward or a punishment? Did I read my September TBR? If you want to know what my September TBR was, I will leave a link to the book game that I play. It was a crazy one because there was a filming fail, so there's 2 parts to it. So look at part 1 first, so it makes sense. Okay, so let's have a little look and see, shall we? So here we go. I've got 2 books by Jen Lyons, book 4 and 5 of A Chorus of Dragons. So that is The House of Always. I read that one. The Discord of Gods. I've read it, but I finished it in October. So it snuck into the last few days of October. I did not finish it in September. It's not looking good, is it? The Sea of Monsters, middle grade by Rick Riordan, 2nd book in the Percy Jackson series. I read that one. The Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuznia. I read that one. Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. It's the 2nd book in Mistborn Era 2, and I didn't read it. There wasn't enough time in the week. Wasn't enough time. Yes, I did not read that one. Oops. And then I needed to read one of the extra books that was on my Bookopoly. So, although, to be fair, I've already failed, let's face it. But the 2 books that were not on, I had to read 1 book to make it into 6. I always do 6 to pass my TBR. So that was either Passing by Nella Larson, which is a classic, or it was Ember in the Ashes, which is a YA fantasy and the 1st book in a series by Sabaa Tahir. I read Passing. I did not read Ember in the Ashes. So basically, I failed. So yeah, I'm just going to briefly look at my Bookopoly. This is what I was supposed to read for Bookopoly. I was hoping to do some more rolls. Out of this, I've read Passing, and I read The House of Always. So, not doing so well with all of this, am I? I need to get rid of these books. So I'm going to didn't read Ember in the Ashes. Didn't read Shadows of Self. So they're not on the shelf anymore. Let's put them all aside. Passing, I did read, and then I have these 4 to talk about. So one of the reasons I didn't read Shadow of Self is because I hadn't yet read Ally of Law. I'd started it when I started doing my September TBR game, so I felt it was going to be okay to read both. But I clearly ran out of reading time. But I did read the Ally of Law, and then I'll add these ones in here. We also have Cogheart, which is a middle grade, and we have a novella, The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince, by Robin Hobb, Cogheart by Peter Bonsai. And then I will also talk about the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, which I'm just going to pop on top of there, because I'm going to go find my punishment now. Yay! So I have taken all the purple rewards out. I have the orange punishments here, which I will mix around and then put into the bag. So all of these punishments were suggested to me on the Shelf Space Discord by Discord Reading Buddies. But if you want to come up with some suggestions for rewards or punishments, then please do leave them in the comments below, and I will add them to here. So I also like to link the punishment to the next TBR game that I need to play. So this will be November now. So the November TBR game, the punishment will be linked to it. So I have got, oh God, I've got this lovely one. So this is suggested by Pondering Books on the Shelf Space Discord. So thank you, not thank you, Pondering Books. It's a fun one for you guys. I have to read a book from the first booktuber that appears in my sub box. Then I need to watch the most recent unseen video. And whichever book they mention first, I need to read. So it's basically like a random worrying worm one ring card that I'm being forced into reading a book. Well, it will be interesting, won't it? That's my punishment. It is fun. I'm not really torturing myself unnecessarily. I am having a good time. And it will be interesting to see what comes up. I mean, as long as it's not like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell or War and Peace. Like, I feel I can cope with a small or horror or just a book I really don't want to read. But then maybe I'll get a nice ranty video out of it. Just have to allow all the other books to be beautiful and wonderful and nice and warm and wholesome within the TBR. So there we go, there's my punishment. Done that. Okay, better not fail my October one or I'm going to be not happy. Right, let's do some stats. Stats. Oh yes, I was going to mention this first. Oh yeah, also, so so these are the books I'm going to be talking about for my stats. There are 8 of them, and I am including the Discord of Gods in this, even though I didn't finish it in September. I read most of it in September, and I just kind of finished it off in October. So I'm going to review it in the September ones rather than the October ones. Now, the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, I read roughly about 100 pages, and then I DNF'd it. If you want to know why, please see wrap-up videos, which will be linked. So I did not read enough of it for me to count it in my book stats. So this is a DNF, and the DNF there was not enough. I wasn't over the halfway point for me to count it within any of the statistics. So this one is going. So first of all, let's look at the book sizes. So I always compare these two animals. So first of all, we have mice. This is a book that is between 150 and 300 pages. And I have just realised, actually, I think I have one that's in the ant category, which is smaller than 150 pages. So let me just double check how big these mice books are. Okay, so slight confusion here. Passing, this is the bind up of all Nella Larson's work. Passing is over 100 pages, but not over 150. So Passing is actually an ant-sized book. So I've read one ant-sized book, which was Passing. The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince just crept in. It's 159 pages, so it just made it into the mouse category. And the Sea of Monsters is just under 300 pages. So 150 to 300 pages is a mouse-sized book. So 1 ant, 2 mice, and then I have 3 goats. So goats are 300 to 400 pages. I recently had cow, which was 300 to 500, but I felt like the difference was too much, so I added an extra category. So we have Cogheart by Peter Panzai, we have Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuznia, and we have The Ally of Law by Brandon Sanderson, all goat-sized books. No cows this month. And then I have these 2 lovely epics. The House of Always and the Discord of Gods by Jen Lyons, which are elephant-sized. And that is a book which is 500 500 to 700 pages, and they are only just elephant sized. They were nearly cow sized because they are literally just over 500 pages. So, but they're over 500, so they count as elephants. Causing chaos with my teacups there. So those are the sizes of the books I have read. I'm now going to look at the age ranges. And oh, there we go, they're nicely all together. So this month I have read 5 adult books and 3 middle grades. So no YA this month. And I do feel that I have read more middle grades than usual because there was middle grade magic. I want to be reading more middle grades. I want a good amount of my TBR and my wrap-ups to be middle grade. So it is something I want to be reading more of. But I think a lot of the buddy reads and the, what's the word? Like readathon prompts and the series that I'm reading do tend to be more adult based. So I think that's why. But I want to change that. I want to be reading more middle grade. So the middle grade magic was a great way of starting that. I am going to be talking more about the readathons that I've done. I just felt like I haven't been hitting enough of the prompts to be talking about it so much during the wrap-ups like I have done previously. So I'm going to do a whole separate video where I kind of go over how I was doing in all the different readathons that I have been trying to take part in. And then next we are going to look at the genres. So funnily enough, we're back to my normal staple, which is fantasy. I have got 6 fantasy books here, which is House of Always and the Discord of Gods, The Ship of Shadows, Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, The Ally of Law, and The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince. All of those have a good level of magic amongst them. Some have got more of a contemporary feel, some are completely otherworldly, and some are more historical based, but they are a lot to do with magic. So that is why they are in that category. Cogheart I put in the category of magical realism. Some people might class it as fantasy. It could even be classed as sci-fi. I don't feel that I am up on my definition of genres so much. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I just think it's fun to look at them and see kind of the range of stuff you're reading. But to me, magical realism is where it is mainly like either historical or contemporary. But there is an element of a fantasticalness within that. So within Cogheart, it is mainly middle grade historical books, but because of the mechs and the clockwork beings, sentient beings that they have in here, it does feel it has that like magical feeling to it. But it is mainly set in a real place. Within a real time period, which is why I would class it more as magical realism. And then I have a classic, which is Passing by Nella Lawson. So not a huge range this month, but I wasn't expecting it to be because my priority this month was to really start getting through some series, which was what I was attempting to do. And then I'm going to look at where the books came from. So all of these, apart from one, are my books. The one that isn't is The Ally of Law, and I have borrowed it from my brother Matty, because I haven't bought Mistborn Era 2, despite the fact I absolutely love them. I think it's because I'm holding out for some sort of pretty covers. I mean, these are perfectly fine. But yes, I have the first Mistborn Era in some very beautiful, I think it's 10-year anniversary editions. And I'm kind of hoping they do the same for Era 2 once all of that's been published. And then I would get those ones, is what I'm hoping. But in the meantime, it's very lovely that my brother will lend me his copies. So thank you, Matty. So yes, one book borrowed and the other 7 are mine. Format. I've mainly been reading novels this month, and to, I'd say, novellas. Novella is more of like a short novel, so I think that Passing would definitely be classed as that because it's even shorter than Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince. But do let me know if sort of more like serial stories are still classed as a novel, because would then a Christmas Carol is 100 pages, so would that be a novella? I'm interested to know, what is the definition of a novella? Is it just size? Or is it something else? Curious. And yeah, that was it. So just 2 novellas, and the other 6 are novels. And I'm now going to look at the authors that I've been reading. So I have read 5 books by female authors, which is House of Voice, Discord of Gods, The Ship of Shadows, The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince, and Passing. And then 3 books by male authors, which is Cogheart, The Ally of Law, and Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. Slightly more balanced than it has been previously. It's nearly half and half, which is great. But sadly, I haven't got any non-binary or trans authors being represented in my reading this month, which is a shame. And I think just continues to highlight that we still don't have as many books published by trans authors. It's why I like to reflect on books, to see like what I'm reading, to kind of highlight, are we getting availability from bookstores? Are these things coming across more? Can we be doing more to show support to communities that struggle more to be published and to get into media and things like that? So I'm now going to be looking at the global majority. And by global majority, it's a phrase that I've picked up from reading the book Loud Black Girls, which is a book it's on my list to own, because then I can definitely quote the right person who came up with it. I do feel bad that I can't remember which particular writer it was in that anthology that came up with global majority, but I really enjoy it, so I use it. So global majority basically means like the rest of the world, not white, Eurocentric, westernized, what's the word, like society, culture, because that seems to be most of where the stories we get come from, rather than a mixture and kind of more a representative of the world in general and our own kind of societies. You know, we do live in multicultural societies, that we don't necessarily need to have to read stories that match our own life experience. It is fun to kind of expand that, and also for everyone to see themselves and be represented. And again, for authors to be having the same equality and level of representation within publishing, which is still something that is not happening. And I'm not doing a great job this month because, one, Nella Larson, it's the only global majority author I have. The rest are white, Eurocentric authors. So that's not great, especially considering how well I did last month to get it kind of, I won it half and half. That's what I'm aiming for, or at least almost half and half. But again, I think, so like I said, the point of this is to be reflective on that. And why do I feel that I'm only reading white this month? I think it's because I really wanted to focus on my series, and I'm reading a lot of series that are written by white authors, because we have a lot more of those available to us than we do black authors, which is why when I come across books that I really love or I'm interested in, I want to push them so more people hear about them, to send those messages to the publishing industry that people want to read about black stories, indigenous stories, Asian stories. You know, we want other stories out there. But yes, I am reading a lot of series. You know, I'm reading Realm of the Elderlings, which is by Robin Hobb, Chorus of Dragons by Jen Lyons, Brandon Sanderson series, Percy Jackson's written by Rick Riordan. You know, there's a lot of all those series are by white authors, so that is why that is that way. So the next series I'm picking up, I definitely want to focus on making sure that I have series that are not just Eurocentric ones. So I am expanding my horizons and getting some great stories from other cultures. So I think I've hit all of them. So we are now on to least favourite and favourite, which is so hard. It's always so hard. I've enjoyed all the books I've read. And I think I know what I'm gonna have to do, and it makes me feel really sad. But yeah, I think because I just felt disappointed by it, which is a shame. Whereas the other ones, like, they hit the expectation. So I'm trying to think of, is my expectation of what they were doing giving me the same level of enjoyment, or does the other disappointment feel worse because it just wasn't as high as I thought it was going to be? So sadly, my least favourite was Passing, because I had really high hopes for this, but the story focused on more like marital relations and like infidelity, and that is not something that I get excited about reading. I was wanting more of like a sisterhood and friendship explorations and race explorations, and we got that at the beginning, but then it didn't go down that road. So that's why I felt disappointed with Passing. And as much as I loved Nella Larsen's writing, like especially when she was writing the stuff that really excited me, because I felt that disappointment in terms of the subject matter, it ends up being my least favourite, which is a shame. But yeah, sad times again. And my favourite is really easy for me to pick out. If you watched my wrap up for the second half of September, you might have expected this, as I couldn't shut up about it whilst saying nothing that I thought was possibly helpful about what this book's about. So this is The Discord of Gods, the final book in the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons. Jen Lyons really should know how to pronounce her name, and I don't, because I'm a terrible person. I love this book. I love this. This book's amazing. I love it so much. Look at do a little dance. Do 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 do. I really don't know what that was or where that came from, but hey, there we go. Love the book. This is my favourite. My favourite. It was a brilliant series. I loved it. It ended it all so well in this book. I had a great time. Snarkastic chaos. Yes, please. Jen Lyons. Yes, please. I will read what you write. I loved it. I love the characters. I love the plot. I love the storytelling. Just everything. Beautiful. Aww. And I do love House of Always as well. But I think I just was impressed by how the story finished. And also there's a character in here that I really love that we didn't see so much in here. But I also really love this one because it had a very different feel to it to kind of the other ones. And it was a very important part of the story that needed to be explored in here. And I loved having so many of my favourite characters all in the same place, needing to have a conversation with each other. And it was really delightful. So I did really enjoy this one, but this one does beat it, which I'm pleased, because I love it when you love the last book in the series so much. Like, I prefer to love the last book than the first one, because you then know it's just getting better and better and better. There are some times when like there's just something that really special happened in the middle that you're like, oh, I did just love that bit. And that's okay, but just when you have the last one that just finishes it off so well, it's so satisfying. I think there's nothing worse than being disappointed in the last book in a series. It just makes me feel really sad, and it is off-putting for me picking up series when I know lots of people didn't enjoy the last one so much. There's definitely a couple of fantasy series that I probably would have put on my list and wanted to pick up if people loved them the same amount all the way through, whereas they haven't done, which is a shame. Anyway, we've gone off on all sorts of tangents now. Let's put the books back because it just looks a bit prettier that way. Can't twist in that direction. There we go. There we go. They're all on there. There we go. So that is my wrap up of stats for September. Can't remember what month it is now. Please do have a chat with me down below. What have you been predominantly reading? Have you got your own stats? Can you give me some of your stats? I'd love to hear what your readings are. Tell me how many books you read. Tell me, give me the animal stats. Give me the genre stats. Give me the author stats. I would love to hear. And do you have a least favourite and a favourite out of all of those? Get busy in the comments. You know I love a chat. And if you enjoyed this, give it a little like, because it's nice to know you're appreciated. Have a wonderful reading October, everyone. Happy reading.